Christian Jackson here with a very special guest, Tate Frazier, someone who I'm very excited to have on the show, host of the ACC Network podcast, and just a guy who really understands the game. So, Tate, thank you so much for being here.
Of course, man. Happy to be here. Happy to talk about the ACC. It's good to have the ACC back in the conversation. Obviously, a couple years where, the haters were winning the war against the ACC, but it does feel like a little bit more depth. 5 teams in the top 30 of KenPom. Know everybody's excited about that. That's fans of the ACC and some good coaches. We lost a lot of legends. It's nice to see some of the young guys. Ryan Odom coming back into the conference. Jay Lucas doing a good job at Miami. And then obviously what Pat Kelsey has been doing at Louisville. So a lot of good positive energy. Obviously 3 openings as well. And we'll talk about some of those coaches potentially that could get into the ACC. But a good time to talk about the conference.
Yeah, the influx of some new quality coaches, I think, has really been the difference. And while, of course, metrically the league grades out much better this year than the last few, and we're going to get more bids, there's a part of me that's a little bit like, I'm looking around and who am I confident on, their ability to make a run in the NCAA tournament? I know this is about the ACC tournament, but just quickly, outside of Duke, who are you really feeling in this league, and who are you most confident in?
Yeah, I think, honestly, the second team was Carolina with Caleb Wilson, but unfortunately, Caleb Wilson is not going to be there, so I think you can take them off the board. I think their ceiling is probably capped at a, best case scenario, Sweet 16 situation. Miami, to me, would probably be the second team that I would turn to just because of Jay Lucas. I think he does a really good job defensively, trying to figure out how to limit what teams are doing with their best players. Has been really good with that. And their front court, Ernest Uday, Malik Renew, both those guys have been really good. And then Henderson is one of those freshmen in the conference that's like the second tier freshman that we kind of forget about, but I think he's been a really nice piece. And Trey Donaldson just feels like one of those guys that hits a big shot in March and ends up in the montage. You know what I mean? So Miami would be in there. Virginia, I know a lot of people are skeptical after if it was your first time watching Virginia at Cameron on that Saturday a week ago, then maybe you have more reservations about this team. But in general, I like their depth. I like what Ryan Odom's been able to do with this team. I like the way that they press and can, speed up, slow it down when they need to. And I do think Chance Mallory is one of those guys who also can give you some problems in March. And Testa Ritter has obviously had a really good year for this team. So Virginia's in that mix. I'm kind of fascinated to see what version of an SMU that we get, because I really love that backcourt. And I do think that backcourt with Boopy and Pierre Jr. definitely gives people problems. And BJ Edwards has been a great defensive piece for them, leads the ACC in steals as well. So that's a team that's trending down that I still have a little bit of optimism in. And then I think the real question is Louisville, because Louisville seemingly would have all the pieces to do it. But as you and I know, every time that Louisville plays a good team, they basically no-show and they go cold. So it's hard to really buy into that group. And then Clemson just feels like a very high floor team, but I'm not sure that they can make a run to a Final Four or something like that. So it feels like a lot of teams that are like best case scenario second weekend, and maybe no teams that can make it to the Final Four outside of Duke. But, it's all about the draw. And NC State, I'm out on NC State right now. I can't even entertain that conversation. I like what Will Wade was doing for a little while, 9-2 to start, but ever since the Carolina win, just going the opposite direction. So, it's hard to really find one team you can buy into. I guess Virginia and Miami would be the two you go for, but it does feel like it's Duke that can get to Indy.
And they caught Carolina at the right time too, like right after Caleb. Like they really just haven't been good at all. With SMU, there was a point in the season, I think it might have been after they beat Carolina, where I'm like, is this a top 3 team in the league? Like maybe if they're this good offensively. I haven't seen clarity on BJ Edwards' injury, but they just haven't been winning without him. So I'm like, if they can get him back, I think they're live to win a couple games in this tournament. If not, I'm a little nervous that they miss the NCAA tournament altogether. And the other, Clemson, man, like Brad Brownell is immortal. We know this, but to me, I just can't get out of my head that what happened 2 years ago. Like that team lost to Boston College by 17 in the ACC tournament. And then like if Alabama didn't get hot, it would have made the Final Four. They're so boring. And we talk about the floor, like, lost 4 in a row at the end of the season. There's a part of me that's looking at the draw in this tournament. And I'm like, if Clemson can beat Carolina and then you get a Duke team that is thinking more about getting healthy, is there a world where Clemson is in the ACC title game? What are kind of your main takeaways with just what you've seen with Clemson kind of stumbling down the stretch? To me, it's just like they kind of, because of it's like we got our veteran bigs. We're gonna play through Godfrey. There's nothing sexy about it. The guards, you're not gonna get any explosive like 20-point games. Like no real guy on this team that you're like he's a really good 3-point shooter. Like not one. I mean maybe Wallin, but like he's made 33 all year. So, where are you at on Clemson? I threw a lot at you there though.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I think that they're just one of those teams that's just really solid across the board. You don't know who's going to be the one that's going to give you issues. I think Dylan Hunter has become kind of like an antagonist to the fan base. Like they've almost turned on Dylan Hunter over the past month, which I do feel a little bit bad for. But RJ Godfrey is a solid, like, hey, we can get a look here with RJ in the post. And it's obviously nice to see him come back from Georgia. Looks like a renewed, refreshed version in the best case scenario for them. I almost feel like he needs to get more touches. Against Georgia Tech, they barely won that game on Saturday. He only took 4 shots in that game, had 8 points, played only 17 minutes. So, like, that's another interesting factor. I mean, Porter has had some good moments throughout the year. Davidson, obviously, has been a nice piece for them. I do feel like they're just one of those teams that, like I said, they're just so solid defensively. They're not going to make big mistakes. And I mean, they should have beat North Carolina in that game without Luka Bogovac really going crazy and having his best game of the season. They win that game on the road in Chapel Hill. So if they get matched up against Carolina again, I see what you're saying. I would really watch out for like a Virginia Tech, though. If I'm looking at the lower part of that bracket, I mean, they're going to have a matchup with Wake, which should be a good game. Juke Harris maybe can make some magic happen. But if Virginia Tech can get past Clemson, I think they would do well to beat North Carolina. I think they had a chance. I mean, Toby Lawal in that game was incredible in Chapel Hill and a really nice piece. Good to have him back and healthy. So, like, Clemson, Virginia Tech in the bottom of that bracket, I feel like it's pretty open for them to potentially make a run. And if Duke is down 2 starters, that opens up the whole ACC, right? For anybody to go make a run and win that championship. Duke looking for 3 and 4 years. But I'm with you. Clemson, definitely, it's a nice draw for them, even though they wish they probably had the double bye.
So Wake beat Virginia Tech at home, forced 19 turnovers. That was before Lawal was back, and Calmise gave you 25 and 7. Nate's, it seems like he might go. I'm not sure if he does, if he's anywhere close to his best. And just the way Virginia Tech's been playing against Carolina and Virginia, and they beat Wake by 20 when they played at home. I'm pretty confident Virginia Tech to get through. Tell me more about what you – and they won at Clemson by 10. So, I mean, that's a matchup there they'd be excited to have. How
I think
high
they're
are
plus
you on
30,000, by the way, to win the ACC tournament, which is
Virginia
insane.
Tech is?
Yeah, it's like –
Wait, I have the odds here with me.
Yeah, it was like ridiculous odds. I was like, my God, maybe it's worth taking a swing if you really believe in the Hokies.
Where are you at on just Abdallas? Or, I mean, I know Bedford Hammond, like guys have all had their moments this year, but for me, I just have a tough, he scored 15 in 3 straight games before that Virginia game, but he just frustrates me sometimes when he starts to just miss the step back threes and he's just not really finishing around the rim. What have you kind of seen from him this year? And in Virginia Tech's best case scenario, like, of course, when they won the ACC tournament a few years ago, it was a bunch of different guys stepping up. Is that kind of the formula with Mike Young?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think Lawal coming back is just a nice defensive weapon for them. And then Abdallas is one of those guys that is the definition of feast or famine, right? I mean, he comes out of the gates early. I think it was Providence, right? The Providence game where he looks like Luka 2.0 and everyone's like, this is the perfect piece for Greece when Giannis is playing internationally. Like, we kind of went too far with Abdallas, and I do think that he is a really good player. But I think the expectations maybe got a little bit out of whack, and it does feel like he can get taken out of a game just pretty easily. Like you said, if he starts leaning into the step back threes, not penetrating, not playing with the physicality, then all of a sudden his, optimization is pretty, maxed out in the worst way. But I do think that Mike Young having that press conference moment where he's just like, what the F am I doing wrong? It was a very exasperated, it just feels like one of those clips that we play in the semifinals of the ACC tournament. And they're like, this was a moment just a week ago when Mike Young was completely at his wit's end. And then all of a sudden he's been able to find some juice with this team because they do have some talent. And I've actually thought that they should have been, they should have probably won 3 or 4 more games in the league than they did. I thought they'd end up making the NCAA tournament. And Mike Young is one of those guys that was at Wofford, is used to the pressure of these tournaments, these conference tournaments where you have to make a run and win. So I think he knows how to coach these tournaments really well. And obviously we saw him do it in 2022. So I just think there's a little bit of secret sauce there. I don't think they're done yet. Virginia Tech Wake will be a really fun game, especially if Calmise plays, because he was a difference maker for them. Not defensively, obviously, but offensively, he can do a lot of good things. So yeah, I'm excited to see what version of Virginia Tech we get once we get to Charlotte.
I forgot that the 2022 team started ACC play 2-7.
Yeah,
And
they were. I mean, they were
9 of 11 to close the season before going
right.
to win 4 in a row. Just nuts.
Yeah, and it's crazy when you think about it. Like they had Carolina in the semifinal, which felt like almost Carolina didn't want to win because then they'd play Duke again, and they seemed pretty content with beating Coach K in his last game in Cameron right there. Almost dodged him a little bit. And then Duke gets Virginia Tech. They don't really get up for that game because, remember Paolo was like, we want North Carolina after they won their game to get to the championship. And then they get Virginia Tech and get smacked in the mouth. So it was like an unassuming Virginia Tech team, which kind of feels like the best version of Virginia Tech. And I think this team matches that identity a little bit.
So I've been going top down with most of these brackets, but we're going bottom up today. Florida State is a team that has been playing very good basketball. I saw some people talking about them as their favorite long shot. They're like 200-1 to win this thing. I mean, Luke Lux has obviously done a great job throwing together a roster with not a lot of money and getting them to play, better basketball. And it's hard not to. I understand Duke is still a huge favorite to win this tournament, and we'll get to Duke in a second, but there's a world where you're not that scared of the bottom of the bracket if you are to pull off a win over Duke. Where are you at on Florida State, a team that is 10-3 since January 17th?
Yeah, something clicked with them. And that SMU game, Chauncey Wiggins, 31 points in that game. It was like a masterclass performance. He's their most veteran guy on the team. It does feel like they have figured out their roles. And Luke Laux, like you said, has done a really good job with this team. We had him on the show earlier in the year, and, it just felt like he was trying to find something to get this team to kick into a gear because he saw some potential there. And finally, they found their footing. And I do feel like Cal's going to be a tough matchup. I like that Cal backcourt. Tate Ames has had a really good year. So that'll be a tough first round 8-9, but classic 8-9 game there in the ACC. But if they're able to get past Cal, find a way to win against Madsen's squad, then against Duke, down 2 starters, Duke's heart's not really in it. They've already won the regular season and dominated. They're already considered the number 1 overall seed. Maybe they can make a splash, make an upset. And Wiggins, they're the classic Florida State team. They have some size that's tough to deal with. And, obviously Luke has learned a lot from Coach Hamilton. So I like where they're trending. It's unfortunate that like some of the teams that are locked in the tournament are trending down. And then some of the teams that are playing so well are trending up in the ACC. And that's kind of where we sit right now.
Cal was 20-8. Before losing their 2 of their last 3, a 16-point home loss to Pitt. It's obviously a blemish, and then losing at Wake. Wake was pretty good at home, in ACC play, but still not.
Always are. Lawrenceville. That's a great advantage. You love it.
But when they were 28, they were 67th they were 60th in KenPom. So it's like, yes, you have this win over UCLA. Like they won at Miami. Like they had a bubble-ish resume, but like, opponents are shooting sub 66% from the free throw line. That's number 1 in the nation. They're shooting, and this is a bit because of Madsen, but like bottom 23-point percentage. Like as good as Ames and Chris Bell and Camden can obviously score it too. They were getting some nice luck and variance. I've never really fully taken them seriously, even though I like some of their best players. Like, do you have any optimism of Cal? Florida State's obviously the trendy team based on the way they've been playing, but what do you think of Cal? It's a veteran team as well.
Yeah, it's a veteran team. I like to see Tate Ames find a home, and he seems like he's really been maximized in his spot there at Cal. And this is a team that, Carolina went out to the West Coast, lost to Stanford in heartbreaking fashion. They got up 15. Then they lose at Cal and had a nice comeback against Cal, but Cal found a way to win. North Carolina was giving out quality wins to everybody in the ACC just so that they could be in that bubble conversation. And then, like you said, they had the UCLA win, the Carolina win. So that got them kind of catapulted into that conversation. I think Madsen is trying really hard just to get Cal back to a place where they're in contention to make the NCAA tournament. It almost would be better for them to not have a team like Florida, like to be playing like an NC State, like if they were in Stanford spot and have Pitt, even though I know they just lost to Pitt, which was a tough loss, but if they could play Pitt and then play an NC State team that's trending down and then maybe get, good fortune against Virginia, like if the bracket broke that way, I'd feel a lot better about Cal. But I think against Florida State, it's just kind of a tough matchup. So I would lean to the Seminoles there. And that's the real reason I don't, quite buy this team. But, it's nice to have Cal at least in the conversation. I thought Stanford was going to have a real shot at it before Okpara got hurt. I thought that they were a really nice piece with Corey and Okpara. But yeah, Cal beat Stanford, kind of took their spot, and then, losing to Pitt at the end of the season pretty much knocked them out unless they can make a run and win the ACC tournament. But I don't know if I see that as like full potential for Cal.
Let's talk Duke now.
Oh, yeah.
We don't need to spend much time talking about how amazing Cameron Boozer is. Dame Sarr has been playing much better basketball. The injuries are obviously the main storyline here. Caleb Foster never gets enough credit. He does what the team needs him to do, just helping run offense, being aggressive at times when it makes sense, and just being so good defensively. And then, Gongba, like, they've played without Gongba, so even if they didn't have Gongba, I'd still be confident in them winning this league. But the Foster one hurts more because I'm not huge on Caden Boozer. I haven't really loved the way he's played. He's kind of came in and like had some free reign to like attack hard in transition, and the 3-point shot hasn't been awesome this year. I just don't know how I feel about Caden playing 30, 32 minutes in a game, and I don't know what the look is without him. I think this might sound a little, after Boozer and Isaiah Evans, maybe your third most important player. How are you evaluating Duke's ceiling without these two guys?
Yeah, I was going to say the real story is Boozer, and it's not Cameron Boozer, it's Caden Boozer. It's like, how much can Caden Boozer step into those shoes of Caleb Foster and be able to be an efficient and a sufficient replacement for him on the perimeter? And I think, with Duke, they have two defensive weapons, right? Malik Brown in the post. I mean, look what Vasar, he couldn't even get post position against Malik Brown. And that was like a perfect example of why Malik Brown is so incredible. And just the fact that he gets hands on so many balls, so many deflections. And then on the perimeter, you have Dame Sarr, who's picking you up basically, not 94 feet, but he picks you up at like 80 feet. You know what I mean? And he just makes every single guard that's bringing the ball up the court have a tough day. Kind of what Yaxel has been able to do at times for Michigan when they unleash him to do that. So those are two defensive weapons for Duke. I think that they really kind of cover a lot of the blind spots for this team. And Caden Boozer, the one note that I will say that is encouraging is that at the end of games, when Duke, has had some issues that people have pointed out, I think that they've solved a lot of them at the end of games. But Caden Boozer has like a knack. I mean, it must be some sort of twin thing going on. But he kind of knows where Cameron Boozer wants the ball. And he kind of knows how to play off Cameron Boozer. And I do think that if they get in a tight situation in the tournament, that Caden might actually be a bet. I know Caleb had a couple, clutch moments this season, but I think that Caden's going to have a better kind of connection with Cameron. They played so much together. So I think that's one silver lining if you want to flip it in the right direction. But I do worry about defensively and some of those shots, some of those threes that can kind of keep Duke, with the momentum going, make sure a team doesn't make a run. Some of that stuff you're going to lose with Caleb, obviously. And I think it'll be fascinating to see like just how they initiate offense without Caleb Foster. And I think, Boozer, Cameron Boozer might end up bringing the ball up the court sometimes. You know what I mean? Like there's going to be some of that too. I mean, they're going to be a fascinating team. I think they're going to test some stuff, kind of like what they did in the ACC tournament last year when Flagg got hurt, right? They kind of gave Knipple the reins. I think they're going to do a little bit of that just to like test out Caden Boozer, which maybe makes them more susceptible to lose in this tournament. And they might learn a lesson along the way, and that might help them in the big tournament.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And, there's definitely some experimenting to do. Do you think when Caden Boozer is off the floor is like, I understand maybe Cam's bringing it up, but like, defensively, like, is there a lineup where like Isaiah Evans, we're going like Isaiah Evans, Sarr, Boozer, Malik Brown, and Darren Harris or something like
Harris is another one.
Like, yeah, I mean, there's no one else that's like a point guard.
Yeah, that's real. And that's what's kind of crazy about what could have been with this Duke team. And obviously we're too far gone, but like if Cedric Coward was there instead of Dame Sarr, this is no problem. You know what I mean? Like, yes, it would hurt to lose Foster, but like Coward could just bring the ball up and be your point guard, and you wouldn't really have an issue with that. And I don't think Dame Sarr has that skill set. They've definitely made him focus more defensively. And I know that Shire's talked about him buying in just as kind of like, hey, here's your identity. You're this defender. On ball pressure is what we care about. But they might have to try to find some other guys to be initiators of the offense. Again, it won't be but so hard because you have a Cam Boozer who's such an anchor down there on the block that like we can get a good shot 9 times out of 10 just by giving Cam the ball. But I do feel like they got to figure that out, because there's going to be some teams that put pressure on the ball and fight fire with fire. And I think that'll be the real test for this Duke team for sure.
Yeah. And I wonder how this changes like tempo, and like when we talk about triggering actions, like Gong, you don't have Gongba who they'll, use as a hub kind of at the 5 at the top of the key. Malik can pass too. Obviously Cam can do damn near everything, but it's just Caden's gonna have to, like, I'm dumbing this down, but he's gonna have to dribble a lot, like you said, the pressure. Like he's just gonna have the ball. And Isaiah Evans is obviously best when you're using him off ball. So there's some interesting things, but it brings me back to, yes, Cameron Boozer is the unanimous player of the year. Yes, he's been ridiculously productive. Does he just have to level up in a level of hero ball that he's had no reason to play, like where he's scoring 35 a night because he can? Like, he's never really had to play outside of himself. Like, do you think he's just ready to just put up even more monster numbers?
I think it'll be by committee more than him doing that, and maybe he definitely could. I feel like he's almost so much better within that even keeled, like you said, taking what the defense gives me kind of mode. And it's a cheat code when people double him. Like, I feel like every time I've seen him get doubled, it's like led to an open 3 for Dame Sarr in the corner or Isaiah Evans on the elbow or the wing, whatever it is. You know what I mean? It's like, it's always led to an open shot. And I just feel like the decoy of him is really good. And I do think that him playing with Caden so much, I think he's going to empower him a little bit. I think we're underrating the aspect of these two guys having so much familiarity with each other and playing so many EYBL games and all that sort of stuff. Like, I think that Caden's confidence is more locked in than maybe we suspect. And I think that comes from the fact that, like, he's going to be playing alongside his brother. This is the last time he's ever going to be playing alongside his brother, which might give him a little bit more juice too. So I'm skeptical of Caden Boozer being able to be like some superstar guard for this team, but I do think he'll step in and be able to handle, what he needs to get them over the hump. Now, when they get to the Michigans, the Floridas, the Arizonas of the world, I do think that's when the Caleb Foster of it all comes into play. And then I'm concerned. But like, to get there, I think they can handle business.
This is a bias that I have, and I think a lot of people do, and I think Texas Tech this year is a great example of that. It's like, yes, on paper, without JT Toppin, this is a much worse team. But when you have a great coaching staff and other great players, like, you find ways to just make adjustments and play differently. Like, to go and win at Iowa State 82-73, and I know they lost to BYU, but they easily could have won that game. That was a pretty impressive second half from BYU. Like, the odds reflect Duke still being a massive favorite. They're minus 350 to win this tournament, down those guys. But I think, Duke and John Shire have continued, like Shire specifically, like, has continued to, I think, just done such an amazing job, obviously. But like, this is a chance for him to flex his coaching muscles even more, of like, everyone, oh, this guy's falling, we're missing a couple guys, like, we're going to make it work.
Yeah. And also, like, teams can't pass on Duke. Like, that's the thing, like, they're so long. Like, it's insane to watch team. Like, you see where they start their offensive possession. It's like damn near at half court because of the size of Duke. And they're so active and everything. Like, I just think that defensively, yes, we're talking about teams pressuring Duke, but like, they'll do it right back. And I think it'll work itself. And the offensive rebounding, like, they create so many more possessions. Like in that Carolina game on Saturday, like, Duke created so many more possessions with the offensive rebounding that, like, the match just doesn't end up working in your favor, because Duke is able just to, like, even if they miss a couple shots, it's like, well, they ended up getting both of those rebounds and got an even better look on the other side. And I think that wears you down at some point, and they'll continue to do that.
I know you're a Carolina guy. You already shared your expectations are kind of tempered, like a Sweet 16 ceiling. Where do you, looking at, it's hard to feel optimistic about a matchup with Duke based on what just happened, but whoever they play, Virginia Tech, Clemson in that first game, and then a potential matchup with Duke, how are you feeling about that?
Yeah, I mean, look, Vasar is the real key now on this team. He's the one that can unlock them to a different level. He's been shooting the ball at a high clip from the outside, which has been great. If he stays out of foul trouble, that is going to be a big part of the machine there. Luka Bogovac is really the volatile piece for this team. He's got shades of Caleb Love, where it's like, please don't shoot that. But if it goes in, you get excited, you know what I mean? And you're like, great shot. But when he's missing, you're like, what are you doing? Right. In that Duke game, perfect example. It's 41-40. Carolina's made a run. They have the ball. And he takes one of the worst step back shots you can take, like just completely out of rhythm, completely like doesn't even initiate an offensive possession. And then all of a sudden Duke goes on a, I think it was like a 16-0 run from there. So like that is the thing that's really volatile in the backcourt with this team. Dixon's been a nice piece, but he's been up and down with ball pressure. Kyan Evans, obviously they didn't hit with Evans in the portal. He's been nice in spot minutes, but definitely not the guard that they thought that he would be. And, Seth Trimble obviously has had some incredible games, but on the road, he's been, non-existent at times. And I think, defensively, he's been nice, but you worry about his kind of up and down nature a little bit. But again, I just go back to Vasar. If they can unlock Henry, get him involved, get him touches, get him able to post guys up. I mean, Malik Brown just completely kept him off the block with his physicality. That was the difference for North Carolina to be able to initiate offense. When they can't get the ball down to him and make entry passes, they look completely lost on offense. And I think that really limits who they can be. And if you get him in foul trouble, I mean, it's over, And I think that's what teams know now. They have a recipe. With Caleb, you had a superstar that could get you a shot even when you had a bad possession. They don't have that anymore.
Moving to the top of the bracket, Stanford has won 4 in a row.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about them? I know you mentioned Noah Akpara has, limits their ceiling, of course, but it's been a while without them, and they've still played some good basketball without him.
Yeah, love Kyle Smith, one of my favorite coaches. Just the man, just a great dude. Invented nerd ball that Todd Golden has taken to the top of the sport. So I know that, Coach Golden gives Kyle Smith a lot of credit, as he should. He's also so great at identifying talent. To find a guy like Ibuka Corey and to see the feel that he has for the game as a guard. And they've thrown a lot of different coverages at Ibuka this season. He's been able to really, break them all down. I think they handle Pitt. I think they beat State again. I think they get to the Virginia game in the quarterfinals, and that's going to be a toss-up game. I think Okori is one of those guys that could be a game breaker. I like to call him Kimba candidates. He's one of those guys that could be that. I mean, we've seen him score over 40 points. We've seen him just continue to lead the ACC in scoring. So he's not a one-man band. There's a lot of good pieces on that team, but boy, is he fun to watch. And I think they get to the quarterfinals. I think they give Virginia a scare, and then I think Virginia ends up winning that game. But Stanford's one of those teams that I wish we could send to the tournament because I just really like that group, and I wish the whole country could see Ibuka Corey because he's a lot of fun to watch.
If you had to put your finger on, and I know just the play of Darian Williams is probably the easiest answer, but what is your biggest your biggest takeaway of NC State? Why things have kind of fallen apart here?
Yeah, when Copeland can get by his initial defender and get downhill and penetrate and kick and find some of those shooters like McNeil or Matt Abel off the bench, right? They just completely break down and they look lost. And yeah, Ben Allen Lubin's been a nice piece, but there's a reason why North Carolina moved on from Ben Allen Lubin. It's because he's a 6'8", 5 man. He's a mismatch for every other team. They see him and they're like, okay, I don't feel as threatened getting to the rim, and they've been able to kind of feast on them. And when State's not making shots, I can show you pictures of State during a game and you can tell me exactly how they're shooting, right? Their body language exudes how they're shooting the basketball, and they're just so up and down. If they're shooting the ball well, State can contend and beat anybody, but if they're not making threes, they just seem totally disconnected. And Will Wade has been negging his team for about a month and a half now. And I just think it's worn its welcome a little bit. And, these guys are getting paid. I thought Holloman would be a better piece for them. He hasn't quite been. Copeland's basically been the point guard for this team. But a lot of times, like I said, if he can't get back by his initial defender, he can't get downhill. They can't get any sort of offense and rotation going on the defensive end for the other team. And, from there, it's been really bad. So they just have not been the team that they look like they could be at the start of the ACC season. And I know Will Wade is frustrated, and I'm sure NC State fans are frustrated because the reckoning, they put a W in front of the reckoning now. It's a wreck. It's not looking good.
Well, obviously still a hire that the fans are super excited about. And
oh yeah. I mean, you got to be excited about for sure.
I just think it was Darian just wasn't the right. I loved him. I thought he was amazing last year for Texas Tech. I just don't think the way that Will Wade wants to play, his strengths are best utilized at all. And then everything with the money, it's okay, now we got to get him involved. So it's you got him running pick and rolls as a ball handler and taking pull-up middies. It's he was not doing that at all at Texas Tech. It's he's spacing the floor. He can play some booty ball down low. Everything was just in much more flow with the offense. And now he's just clearly not his best. And you're right about Copeland. When he's going off, they look unreal. 16 assists against SMU, 21-10 against Virginia Tech. It's with Will Wade, it's a lot of we're kind of punking you defensively, and then offensively, it's we're out talenting you. His best LSU teams, it's they just had dudes, just Tremont Waters and Nas Reed, and they kind of just and Cam Thomas and like Watford, just like Scott May's pros. And like, I just don't think you're getting, I think Matt Abel's an NBA player down the line, but like, you just don't really have enough pop off the bounce. Like, it's just too much cope when I agree. And I just think morale and chemistry wise, losing 6 of 7 is just really tough at this stage. Like, there's nothing to really be that excited about. And I just don't know if, like, you're right, he's been making all these cries all season, like publicly, like it hasn't really worked. So like, why would it start to work now?
Yeah, it would be honestly shocking if they turned it on, but it'd also be very NC State. Like NC State's runs always come when they've completely been counted out. I mean,
Right.
what they did when they made the Final Four in 2024, you know, what they did in 1983, like that's just Julius Hodge beating UConn when, you know, everyone said they couldn't be UConn and Julius Hodge predicted that they would before that game, right? Like that's sort of NC State's calling card just kind of as a program, but it does feel like it's too far gone. Also, Darian Williams, I just don't understand. Like he looks like lethargic half the time. You know, that's the thing. I'm like, I don't know if he's out of shape. I don't know if he doesn't feel well. Like even in Maui this year, like Maui was such a green light for NC State to go win Maui and then like send a statement to the rest of college basketball. Like, hey, we're here. We won a big major tournament, and they no showed in Maui. And that was like the first time I was like, what is happening here? And it's been more of the same throughout the season.
Quickly on Louisville, Miami. You touched on these teams. Let's start with Louisville. So they just got, you know, a nice quad 1A road win at Miami. Without Michael, it's, you know, this has been the story with Amen, Acuff, and Peterson. There's just been a lot of the status of the freshman has been so up in the air. What is your assessment of Louisville with and without him, and how real is this trend of Pat Kelsey's inability to win these big games related to their play style, or is it just kind of some bad variance and some bad luck?
Yeah, I mean, I think the word is variance, and I think that is play style, and I think that at some level, it's a fair. I mean, it's kind of tough for Louisville because they go from Kenny Payne era, which was just so abysmal that you're like, I'll take anything to get back on the saddle, and now they're fully back on the saddle. But there is like this, you know, it's like they're just ramming against the wall, trying to figure out what they're going to do. And you know, Conwell has been great for this team. Javon Hadley's been a nice like X factor piece, right? McNeely's been hot and cold. You know, if you get the best version of McNeely, I feel like he's the swing factor for them. Like if McNeely's making threes, then things kind of go in the right direction. I think when Brown plays, sometimes they almost get outside of their philosophy, where it is like, okay, Michael, you do your thing. You know what I mean? And then it almost feels like it nullifies what you get from Conwell and some of the other guys. So that's a interesting wrinkle. And obviously it's because of the back issue where he's missed some games. So I think it's very valid for Louisville fans to feel how they feel, which is like, we have to change something philosophically to be able to win some of these big games. And what were they? They were like 0-8 or 0-9 against Q1A teams before they beat Miami. So like, the numbers don't lie, you know, like it's sitting right there in front of you and staring you down. And I guess variance is the right answer, but it can't be that lopsided. Like it'd be one thing if it was like variance would be like 4-4 in those games. So, you know what I mean? We're like, hey, one game we're hot, we were able to win. The other game we just weren't and we lost. But like they've gotten blown out in some of those games. So that's tough too.
The shot profile just hasn't been able to translate when they play an elite team. When you go at Arkansas, at Tennessee, non-con, it's just like you're not playing the same way. And like that's where a guy like McNeely, that's when he goes cold. Like I just don't really have much faith in him in those bigger moments because it is just a little bit harder. But I mean, Hadley's been playing really, really well lately. I think Frew has been my other disappointment with them. Like, you know, they are, 11th in the country in 2-point percentage. That should be a lot of Frew dunks and putbacks and lay-ins. And there's just been less of those to go around. So I'm not very high on them, but Brown is so good. And you saw that stretch where he was just hitting 7-8 threes in a game where it's like, and to have Conwell as your second best scorer is just nutty. But I just look at a team like Miami and Virginia, who under these first year head coaches have just been much more consistent in the way they win is, you know, less reliant on of course variance.
Yeah, it does feel like against Louisville sometimes, like when they play a team that's willing just to let them do what they want to do, it's like, oh man, this is amazing. Look how good Louisville looks. But when a team like physically intimidates them and pushes them off their spot, they almost look at the bench like, well, what do I do now? It doesn't feel like they have another option outside of that. And Mikel Brown is really the other option because he's so talented and gifted. And if he's not out there, then you run into a tough situation. And I think, you know, say they get past SMU or Syracuse, whoever gets there in the first game, like I think Miami will have a get back game opportunity against Louisville, and I would like Miami in that matchup.
Quickly before I get you out of your Tate, I know you mentioned Miami you think has the best chance of beating Duke. Can you speak a little bit more to that, and then Virginia as well, what you think would need to happen for them to play better than they did at Cameron?
Yeah, I think Virginia would, with two starters down, I think Virginia would have a better shot too. I would give them a shot. I think Miami, the reason I say Miami is because Jay Lucas kind of knows the inside workings of what John Shire wants to do. So I think there's a little bit of, inside trader secrets that they have there that like he's going to be able to use in his back pocket. And I like the matchup on the front court. I think Uday has had some incredible games this year when he's locked in. Renew's a really nice piece. I'm happy to see him go back home to Florida and be able to kind of piece it together. And Donaldson's one of those guys who can swing a game as well. True Washington coming off the bench. I think he's a 6 man of the year candidate for some people in the ACC. So that's another name to throw out there for Miami. And again, I mean, really with Duke, you just got to we're all just praying that they have an off night, in the ACC. That's what all these teams are hoping for. And I think Virginia and Miami are well equipped to win a game if Duke's not playing their best down two starters. So I would say those two, and I'd go Miami first. And again, I think Jay Lucas, if it wasn't a Shire year for what he's been able to do, then like Jay Lucas, Ryan Odom, you pick which one you like, but they should be coach of the year. And I'm sure at some point, both those guys will end up winning that award in the ACC.
When you factor in Miami not playing Duke, like you said, the Lucas trade secrets, and then the physicality and rebounding prowess of Uday and Reneau, there's a lot to like about that. Miami's chances there. And also shout out Noam Davrat coming out of nowhere to becoming one of the best shooters in the ACC. Quickly, last thing on Virginia, something that when I was getting ready for that Virginia Duke game that stood out to me, I'm looking at their schedule and I'm like, they haven't played a top 25 team all year. Until Duke. So I understand that they're very balanced. They do a lot of things great. You can speak highly on, the play of DeRitter and his skill, the shot blocking and apparently floor spacing of Onyenso and Grunlow. Sam Lewis just does it all. Chance Mallory's electric, Malik Thomas, so balanced, so many good players, but the one time we saw them in, of course, the toughest spot at Cameron, that's the product. I just feel like they're such a mystery box to me for the NCAA tournament. Is that fair? Do you think that, or do you have a different opinion?
No, I'm right there with you. I mean, especially if you get a 13 seed that is able to get to really the secret sauce of Virginia, right, is Grunlow and Onyenso are so good around the rim. Their block percentage is best in the ACC. Defensively, they've been great. But if those guards are getting broken down, Dallin Hall's getting broken down, and they're putting so much pressure on the rim, and you're putting so much weight on those guys on the back end to defend, they get in foul trouble. Then what? You know what I mean? That's the big thing for me with Virginia. And when they've played other teams with front courts that match those two guys, we've seen what Duke did, that they've had some issues. And so it really would depend on matchups. If they played a 5-out team to open the tournament, maybe, that's a team that can get hot from the outside and give them some problems. But I do wish they had more tests, but I do like the depth of their team. And Malik Thomas is the type of guy, a Kemba candidate that can get hot. Loved him at San Francisco before he went to Virginia. There's a lot of guys on this team I just really like to watch play too. And, they're solid. They're not going to let you beat, they're not going to beat themselves. But I worry, if they get into the second weekend, let's say, and they play a true one of these one seeds, Arizona, Michigan, whoever it may be, Florida, my God, if Virginia played Florida and their front court, I think that would be barbecue chicken. You know what I mean? That's the problem with Virginia. I just don't think they can get past a certain point in this tournament if they're a 4 seed. And, if they could win the ACC tournament, that would be great for them this year.
If you were to sprinkle, what would be the pick?
Man, I mean, long shot would be Virginia Tech. That would be my long shot, just because I just feel like that team is too good to be where they are. But trying to be rational about it, I would just take Virginia plus 650.
Louisville having that much better odds than Miami, is that not shocking to see, especially having an extra game?
It is shocking, but for whatever reason, the computers and the analytics, and I think a lot of that stuff just continues to love Louisville, because when they win big. You know what I mean? They dominate, and I think that helps the metrics in their favor. And I think a lot of Vegas looks at that and they're just well, this Louisville team, why not Louisville? But I would lean towards Virginia, so I would take them plus 650.
Tate, thank you so much for coming on. Great to finally meet you, and
of course, man.
Enjoy the madness, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for covering it all. And if you ever need me, I'm around, and hope you enjoy the ACC tournament, brother.